In 2021, one of the most crucial maritime passages in the world was blocked. The massive container ship Ever Given ran aground and completely obstructed the Suez Canal. Global trade suffered significant losses. We will talk about the importance of the canal for humanity and the most expensive traffic jam in history right now. But before we begin, make sure you have subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated with future content. This will greatly help us to produce more interesting videos for you. The Suez Canal is one of the most important man-made waterways in the world. This facility has proven its usefulness and has paid for itself many times over. It has positively impacted global trade by significantly reducing the distance between Europe and Asia for ships, making many goods cheaper and more accessible to consumers. Despite the obvious benefits of the Suez Canal, building it was not easy. In the 19th century, trade between Europe and Asia was highly profitable, but transporting goods took a lot of time. There were two options: a long sea route around the African continent or a shorter one through Egypt, but part of the journey had to be made over land. The idea of creating a navigable canal in Egypt to directly connect Europe and Asia arose many times. There is evidence that the ancient Egyptians even succeeded, but the so-called Canal of the Pharaohs was eventually buried by sand. In the mid-19th century, French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps took on the challenge. Fatefully, he had the necessary connections and negotiation experience. Lesseps not only obtained permission from the Egyptian authorities to construct the Suez Canal, but also raised the funds for construction by selling shares. It seemed that with the permissions and money in hand, action could be taken, but it was not so simple. The canal had its opponents who believed that human intervention in nature would lead to disaster. For example, flooding neighboring coastal towns, or that the water in the canal would stagnate and turn it into a foul-smelling sewer. The main reason for delays, however, was Great Britain, which at the time dominated the seas and did not want any changes. For nearly 5 years, the project was stalled due to political debates, behind-the-scenes intrigues, quarrels, and threats. But despite everything, luck was on Lesseps' side, and construction began. The canal route went through the desert, and thousands of people worked in harsh conditions under the scorching sun. Digging had to be done manually for many hours at a time. Water and food were delivered by camels. Some workers could not withstand such conditions and died. For various reasons, construction was paralyzed several times. The introduction of then exotic excavators and dredgers helped the project. The construction lasted 10 years. The cost of the work more than doubled the initial estimates. In 1869, the Suez Canal, extending 99 miles, about 160 kilometers, connected the Mediterranean and Red Seas, acting as a conventional boundary between Asia and Africa. France and Egypt owned the Suez Canal, but external debts forced Egypt to sell its share of the stocks to Great Britain, with the agreement stipulating that after 99 years, the canal would become fully Egyptian. As time passed, the Suez Canal grew more popular, generating more revenue, especially with the discovery of oil fields in neighboring Saudi Arabia, turning it into a highly profitable enterprise. When the time came for Egypt to take sole control of the canal, the shareholders were fiercely opposed. This led to an armed conflict known as the Suez Crisis. Maritime traffic was completely halted for 6 months. Eventually, the canal was transferred to Egypt under the condition that it would not hinder international vessel passage. 10 years later, the Suez Canal was blocked again during the Arab-Israeli War. The conflict resulted in a vast number of mines being laid along the entire maritime route, causing shipping to be suspended for 8 years. After demining operations, traffic was restored. For a long time, the canal remained a single-lane route. Its capacity was less than 50 ships per day. In the 21st century, Egyptian authorities undertook a massive reconstruction of the Suez Canal, increasing its capacity to 100 ships per day. A new 45-mile, about 72 kilometers path was constructed parallel to the old waterway, but most of the canal still operates with one-way traffic. The Suez Canal is the shortest maritime route between Europe and Asia, making it very important for global trade. Any incidents there can result in losses amounting to millions of dollars. In recent history, incidents in the Suez Canal waters have been infrequent but regular. Ships have run aground or even sunk at different times, but usually these problems were resolved within a few hours, at most a day or two. This continued until 2021, when the massive container ship Ever Given entered the Suez Canal. In the spring of 2021, one of the world's largest container ships, the Ever Given flying the Panamanian flag, was en route from Asia to Europe. The cargo ship carried about 18,000 containers filled with various goods, laptops, sneakers, furniture, and so on. On the morning of March 23rd, the vessel, as part of a convoy, was passing through the Suez Canal. At one point, the Ever Given turned. Its bow struck one bank, and its stern hit the other, completely blocking traffic in both directions. The length of the container ship was 1,312 feet, about 400 meters, and the width of the water at the accident site was about 984 feet, approximately 300 meters. Upon inspection, it was clear that the ship was firmly stuck in the ground. The first excavator to arrive at the site immediately became a meme on social media. In photographs, it appeared as if it was single-handedly trying to save the global economy. Of course, much more equipment was later brought to the accident site. A whole fleet of tugboats was also deployed, but to no avail. Meanwhile, more than 400 ships accumulated on both sides of the canal. Analysts calculated the damage. According to estimates by Lloyd's List, the canal's blockage cost global trade about $10 billion daily based on the value of the stuck cargo. But that was not all. There was a disruption in the supply chain of goods to various countries. Tankers carrying millions of barrels of oil were also trapped in the jam, causing oil prices to rise by 5 to 7%. It's no wonder the traffic jam was called the most expensive in the world. Some of the trade ships turned around and took the long route around the African continent, as in old times. The decision was not easy. Wait for the problem to be resolved, or spend an additional week on an alternate route with higher fuel consumption. Days passed, but the problem remained unsolved. There was a plan to partially unload the Ever Given to reduce its draft, but there were no cranes available for this task. The decision was then made to drain the fuel and water ballast and dredge the bottom near the bow section. On the sixth day of the incident, nature aided the rescuers. A strong tide lifted the container ship, and powerful tugboats pulled its bow into deeper water. The Ever Given was freed. After almost a week of downtime, shipping in the Suez Canal resumed in its previous format. Immediately after the rescue operation of the Ever Given was completed, the container ship, its cargo, and crew were detained for the duration of the investigations. According to the first report from the Suez Canal Authority, the ship ran aground due to strong winds. Later, an error by the captain was considered as one of the possible causes, but it's important to clarify here. The rules require any ship passing through the Suez Canal to take on board a team of Egyptians led by a pilot who will give recommendations on how to navigate the vessel. However, in the event of an accident, the pilot does not bear responsibility. This creates a situation where piloting services are imposed, but in case of an incident, the captain is blamed. Bloomberg reporters attended the court session on this case and uncovered interesting details. Before the incident, 2 Egyptian pilots boarded the ship and gave their permission to enter the canal. A few kilometers into the canal, visibility began to deteriorate due to a sandstorm. Wind gusts reached 75 feet per second, about 23 meters per second, and the bow of the container ship began to drift spontaneously from left to right and back. At this moment, according to the court-presented recordings of the voice data recorder, the first pilot commanded to turn the wheel and increase speed, while the second pilot argued with him. When the captain intervened in the disagreement, it was already too late. The Ever Given crashed into the bank. Its protruding underwater bow part plunged deep into the rocks and sand while the stern hit the opposite bank. Nothing like this had ever happened in the history of the Suez Canal. The ship was diagonally stuck, completely blocking traffic. The Suez Canal Authority named the ship's captain as the culprit of the accident, considering itself a victim, and demanded compensation of $1 billion. The ship owner and insurers deemed the amount excessively inflated. After lengthy negotiations, the parties settled on approximately $550 million in compensation, with $200 million to be paid immediately. After almost 100 days of detention, the ship was released. The container ship headed to Europe for unloading and then for technical inspection. Soon the Ever Given passed through the Suez Canal again, this time without incident. The Ever Given incident highlighted how fragile the global supply chain can be. Companies around the world suffered significant damage. Modern freight transport relies on the expectation that goods will arrive precisely on time. Previously, unloading and loading a container ship could take a week or more. Today, the same process is completed in just a few hours, thanks to automatic cranes and complex planning algorithms. This is an efficient model that saves on storage and inventory, but it is very fragile. A single problem in the supply chain can bring everything to a halt. The prolonged closure of the Suez Canal resulted in a cascade of delays. A ship not arriving on schedule at the port not only created a problem for those waiting for their cargo, it also meant the accumulation of all the containers that the ship was supposed to pick up for export. Over the last few decades, the size of ships has increased significantly. This gigantism is linked to ship owners' desire to save money, that is, to transport as much cargo as possible in one trip. As the Ever Given incident showed, massive ships have exceeded the capabilities of maritime infrastructure. Dozens of ships use the Suez Canal daily, traveling from Europe to Asia and back without making the lengthy journey around Africa. The canal brings about $5 billion to Egypt annually. Obviously, additional safety measures are necessary for gigantic ships. If the Suez Canal is not deepened and widened, the likelihood of blocking the entire route remains, and who knows, maybe next time the losses will be much greater. As we reach the conclusion of our video, we sincerely hope you found it enjoyable. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, activate the bell icon for notifications, and show your support with a big thumbs up. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this video in the comments. Just writing thank you can significantly help YouTube's algorithms to share our content with more viewers, enabling us to create even more interesting videos for you. Your feedback and support are invaluable to us.